To round out the shapeshifting tree, it's time we hit not only the Werebear specific skills of Maul and Shockwave, but also the shared skills Hunger and Fireclaw. Despite the lower popularity of the Werebear for shifter druids, the form actually provides a great amount more utility than its wolf counterpart, thanks to its more crowd control focus with multiple stun effects while still maintaining a few damage options. Starting with the exclusives, we have Maul, which functions on a similar charge system to the Werewolf's Feral Rage, except instead of speed and leech, we gain damage, attack speed, and stun effects, which scale similarly based on the number of charges, which can range anywhere from 1 all the way up to the mid-30s of charges if you have enough plus skills, with each charge providing 30% enhanced damage and 3% increased attack speed. It is worth noting that even though the graphic doesn't change past the 4th charge, the effect still requires charging up to full, and while it's not uncommon to combine the skill with Hunger or Fireclaw, a lot of people will just use this skill as a main attack, making it much easier to keep at full charge consistently, only swapping to the others when necessary for specific enemies. But if you do lean more into those, Maul does work the same as Feral Rage in that it will continue to provide stun and damage effects as long as you have your green orb. Now, the other exclusive skill, Shockwave, is an extra interesting skill since it's the only wereform attack skill that uses faster cast rate, so having a little bit of faster cast to hit a good breakpoint can be handy in this form. Though remember that the shifted druid actually has better breakpoints than the human form, so it's more in line with the assassin's breakpoints than the normal druid ones. As far as how the skill itself works, it shoots 5 piercing missiles that will attempt to stun enemies they strike in a pattern similar to Teeth or Multi-Shot, and unfortunately, like Teeth, Shockwave has a next delay, so sadly it cannot multi-strike single targets like Charge Bolt or Charge Strike, so you'll find it more beneficial to aim at a wide area by keeping your cursor close to your character rather than further away when casting, to avoid as much overlap as possible, and as such, wasted damage. Like other stun skills, there is a 10-second cap on the stun length, despite it being able to show higher in some versions of the game, and it only has a 10% chance of applying to things like champions and uniques, so against tougher groups of mobs you will need to spam it, but thankfully when used alongside Maul, it is pretty easy to get it even on the tougher enemies, allowing you to keep your mercenary much safer than other builds in the game. This is also helped by how stun always just applies the duration of the most recently effective stun, so you'll keep enemies locked down pretty easily with this combo. On the shared skills, we thankfully have some fairly simple abilities to understand, starting with Fireclaw, which is exactly what it sounds like, fire damage added to a melee attack with a couple synergies in the elemental tree, which you sadly cannot cast while shapeshifted, but on the plus side, it can be combined with Armageddon for some area of effect damage, since Armageddon can be cast while shapeshifted, and it shares synergies with this skill. The only downside is that you are heavily centered on fire damage, though when stacked with Maul, you can get your physical damage up to at least an okay amount alongside it. The other shared skill is Hunger, a biting attack, that shares its animation with Rabies on the werewolf, but is the only biting attack for the Werebear, and is known for having faster attack frames. Though in Lord of Destruction, these frames were buggy due to how the game worked, causing every other attack to essentially guaranteed miss. But with the new frames in Resurrected, it functions closer to intended. Now, as far as its function, it's a skill with extremely high dual leech, but also an extremely large physical damage penalty. Specifically, it drops your damage by, well, 75%. After all other effects have been considered, meaning it's really hard, if not impossible, to counter completely, but due to the high leech amount, it can be handy to even just have a 1 point in for quick pick-me-ups in the middle of battle, since even at level 1, it's 72%, and with plus skills, you'll quickly pass triple-digit leech amounts. Overall, the bear form is a lot stronger than it's given credit for, despite having access to less options in terms of their loadout. The trick is to remember that it is far more of a control build than a DPS build like the wolf, but it can still bring the hurt to single targets when it needs to. So, do you prefer the bear or the wolf form more? What are some changes you wish Blizzard would make to the shapeshifting tree? Mention them down below, and if you want to see what its main competitor, the werewolf, brings to the table, you can find a link to that on screen now. And as always, a special thanks to channel members and patrons that make this content possible.